Welcome back everyone. Today I am going to do a little bit of a tutorial feel because I've had a lot of questions about how the skill tree works and what each skill does. So I'm going to just quickly do that. To get to your skill tree, to start off with, you start off with your home screen when you log into the game. You go over to the Mech Lab screen, if my mouse can click. And then for each individual mech, you will go to skills. You will notice that you have certain amount of XP and GXP. Unless you've been here for a really long time, then you might have some historic skill points or general skill points, and they are also offering general skill points as rewards. So there is that to consider, so you can actually earn general skill points. All of it pretty much applies the same way. You can, if for example, I could click add skill points and I can move this slider over. It'll cost me experience and C-bills to unlock skill points. Skill points are used to purchase your skills. From there, I'm going to minimize this so we can see the actual maps. There are several different branches of each tree basically. Um, and we're going to go through all of them. This video might take a little while, just forewarning. I'm going to actually start with sensors because Firepower Tree has the most intricate stuff in it. Actually, there's something even... Auxiliary is actually the first one. My bad, it hadn't scrolled over far enough. If you see this, it normally says just means that you have no items that that certain parts of this skill tree will not affect. As such, for an example, my mech has no consumables. The auxiliary skill tree works primarily with consumables, hence the first one gives you a consumable slot of +1. So it's just telling me that I don't have consumables to benefit from like UAV range, but I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit. Right now, we're on the auxiliary tree. There are several consumable slots +1. I see slot 1 here, consumable slot 2 there, consumable slot 3 here. So, and all mechs have at least one consumable slot to begin with. And unless I am missing one, which I could be, consumable slot 4, that means you can have a max of 5 consumables. Each one will stack on top of the other. But you've got to follow these little paths to get to each one. So say I want to get to this consumable slot over here. I'd have to buy all these consumable slots, or all these skill slots, to get to this one here. That's great if I intend to use each of these other skills. If I'm not planning on using each of those skills, that could be a little weighty on the number of skills. You can only have 91 skill nodes activated across all the trees per mech. I will also state, going back to this experience is locked to the specific mech. If you sell this mech, all that experience goes away, and all the skill points you have unlocked goes away with that mech. General experience, which you see here as the orange tag, that one there goes across for all mechs on the account. So you can spend that on any mech that you want, and you will gain general experience each match according to a percentage of the experience you earn for the chassis that you're using in that mech. With that out of the way, lot to cover, sorry. But anyways, if I was to continue down this tree, I would have to first unlock the tree by buying that first consumable slot. Now, as you can see, I'm clicking on things and I'm not necessarily buying it. I do not actually commit to any buy until I click buy XP or allocate XP. Like if I do this, buy XP, I'd have to do this. I'd have to hit OK, which I'm not going to because I don't want to buy the skills right now on this mech. And then it would say save loadout or confirm skill changes or apply, and then you would click that. Yeah, confirm and apply changes. Right there, pretty self-explanatory when you hover your mouse over it. I would recommend to never click respec skill tree because last I knew that actually relocks all the skill nodes. There's no reason for that. You can always just move your skill points freely once they are unlocked. Like, for example, if I unlock this consumable slot and then later on I'm not using that consumable slot, I could always deactivate that node. It would still be unlocked, but then I could activate another one of my 91 skill nodes I can have activated, and this will not count against me. So there's no reason to do a respec skill tree as far as I understand how it works. Revert changes is like if I did a whole bunch of changes and went, I don't want to do that, you can click reverse changes. Or what a lot of people do is I'll just hit home, it'll pop up a warning going, hey, you haven't saved your changes. Just hit cancel, or basically go, I don't want to save those changes anyways, and you will undo it all at that point. So, hiding this again. Too much information to cover. I am sorry, people. Anyways, most of these are pretty self-explanatory. As I stated, they stack on top of each other. Any UAV duration improves it by plus 10 seconds. UAV range increases the range that the UAV will detect things underneath it. Extra UAV means that you can carry an extra UAV. Normally you can only carry one. This one here lets you be able to carry two. And then UAV range 2, if you're using UAVs, that's a great one to go through, and then another consumable slot. Off of that, we have enhanced narc. This is not a consumable item, but if you have the narc weapon, there's narc mode slot 1 and 2. If you have the narc weapon on your mech, it is actually pretty good to put this on your mech because it will increase the velocity of your narc, which means it's easier to hit targets. And it will increase the duration of your narc beacon that hits your targets, meaning that it lasts longer. Pretty good if you're planning of specializing with narcs. Not many people use narcs, so I'm just going to move right on. Capture assist, these 4 slots here, they help your mech capture points, such as the points in assault, where it's just 2 bases and you stand inside the little bars and you can capture the base. It also helps with conquest, where you have the 5 points. It will help you get those points faster. For the most part, most people don't sink the skill points into capture assist because they'll just get on it as long as they need to anyways. However, for light mechs, it could be worth looking into, but for the most part, you don't know what game mode you're dropping in quick play, so you don't know if that skill is going to be a complete waste in a skirmish match, or it's going to be very important in a conquest match. From there, we have this center tree. In order to go down this, or center branch, in order to go down this center branch, you have to first pick a side. I would always recommend going here, and then if you use artillery or airstrikes, go with advanced salvos and then move over and go straight down. I normally use UAVs because I find I do too much team damage with the salvos or with the strikes. Some people are very good at placing them. If you're good at placing them, by all means. I will cover advanced salvos later. But the enhanced cool shots, if you have a mech that runs very hot, it is actually very good to have cool shots on. When you're about to overheat, you hit your cool shot, give it a few moments for the heat to flush down, and then you're back into the fight again. Instead of shutting down or having to stop shooting while everyone else on the enemy team is looking at you and killing you. But you must activate it before you shut down. And if you activate it, it takes a few moments for it to actually take full effect. It's not an instantaneous loss of heat. So you've got to wait a moment before you continue shooting. Otherwise, you're just going to shut yourself down and almost waste the cool shot. You'll probably start back up again pretty quickly, but it still remains as a statement. Coolant reserves, just like extra UAV, it allows you to put on an extra cool shot if you're a mech that runs very hot, and it's a mech that tends to survive pretty long when you're using it. Having multiple cool shots can help you throughout the match. There's also cool shot cooldown. This will make it so that your cool shots, if you have several of them, makes it so that they cool down faster so you can reuse it again sooner. And of course, consumable software. From there, we have the advanced salvo tree and Expanded reserves. Advanced salvos means that and they do stack once again. They means that it will drop more shells down, and the duration will be longer. So you might actually catch a mech inside a larger explosion radius, or if it's for an airstrike, it means it'll go farther, I should say. If it is the artillery strike, it works in a circle, and that means there's more shells dropping in that circle. If they don't get out of that circle in time, that means that it's the potential of more damage hitting them. Expanded reserves, just like extra UAV coolant reserves, it means you can put on an additional strike or airstrike or artillery strike. Most of these are pretty simplistic. For enhanced spotting, it just means that your strike spread is reduced. So say our airstrike, you'll actually shorten up the strike's length, but it'll be more concentrated, so multiple shells will probably hit one target. Artillery strikes, the circle will get smaller, which means more shells will be hitting in a more concentrated area. If they don't get out of the smaller circle, that means that more shells are likely to damage them. More shells hitting, more damage. Go figure. Sensors. A lot of people say that sensors are useless. This depends upon what you are looking for your mech to do. Target info gathering. I'm going to straight up say this right now. This is the damage display for your target that you have targeted and their weapon layout. It does absolutely nothing to missile lock-on times. I am stressing that now because a lot of people think it will. Target decay. This one here means that when you have a target and they break line of sight, you will maintain that target lock for longer. But you must be the one to be targeting that target for target decay to take effect. If you're an LRM mech and you're not getting your own locks, target decay is not going to help you. Just putting it out there. Target retention. This means that when mechs get behind you, they're no longer in front of you, you normally lose your lock. This lets you actually be able to keep locks on enemy mechs when they move behind you. Can be pretty good if you're expecting mechs to like a light mech might use target retention pretty well, because they're going to zoom by the mech trying to escape and weave, and they want to know where their target is when they turn around to re-engage it. And target decay also can help light mechs so that they maintain the target lock when they get behind cover, because most light mechs aren't going to just stand out in the open. You're supposed to duck from cover to cover while you're shooting. So target decay can make sure you keep an eye on where your target is and where it is going for longer. So it's not just useful for LRMs, it's useful also for light mechs. How useful? That's up to the individual player. Some people might feel that it's more beneficial to them. Others might say it's a complete waste. This is up to personal preference. Sensor range. This should be a no-brainer. It extends the range that your sensors can target lock onto a target. This is you pressing the default key R to target lock a mech that you can visually see. The standard targeting range, last I recall, was 800 meters. This will extend that by 7% per each sensor range node you have unlocked and active. Advanced zoom. This is a special little camera-in-camera zoom box. Some of you may have seen this pop up with some other players. You normally have 3 zoom settings: default, a mid zoom, and a long range zoom. The advanced zoom is a 4th zoom range and is at 4 times magnification. However, you required it to be key bound to a special key. It is not one of your general zoom button keys. If you hit the normal zoom, you'll just cycle through the normal zoom ranges. This is a different button. I do not recall what the default button is because I very rarely, if ever, use advanced zoom. Onward we go. We've already gone through that. Radar deprivation. This is pretty much a direct counter to target decay. Each version of radar deprivation, and there are 5 nodes of it. Each one gives you plus 20% uh, to the time that remains when you break line of sight. If you have all 5 nodes unlocked, it does not matter if your opponents have maximum target decay, they will instantaneously lose locks on you. Radar deprivation is good for many mechs. The faster the mechs and the faster they can get into cover, the better it is for them. I would say that's probably best for mediums and some of the moderately speed, like 70 kph heavier mechs. Assault mechs can still benefit from radar deprivation, but they're not going to gain the full benefits. But it can still be extremely useful. It's up to each individual player to determine what skills are best for them. You're going to also see seismic sensor. This gives you a little bubble, sensor bubble around you. When you are standing perfectly stationary, you will see little red blips on your mini map when an enemy moves around in this close range bubble. This can be good for an assault mech because you can see if there's a light mech behind you when you're standing still, or it also will trigger briefly when you are going from forwards and you're going to backwards, or backwards to forwards, because there's always that moment where it says 0 kph that you are moving. That classifies as stationary, and you might get a quick blip. It's also just generalized good for just watching your back when you're staying stationary behind cover sniping or something, and you get that sneaky light machine gun mech that gets behind you. Well, their little footfalls trigger the sensor. If you're paying attention to your mini map, you go, oh, there's someone behind me, and you start torso twisting to shoot them. I think the last one in the sensor tree is enhanced ECM. This, if you look in the box down in the bottom right, it's pretty mouth-worthy. But in short term, if you have ECM on your mech, you want to get the 2 enhanced ECM skills if you can. Because what those will do is they will reduce the enemy's range that they can get a target lock on you when they have visual line of sight. And it also reduces stealth armor cooldown. So therefore you can reactivate your stealth armor sooner when you have it deactivated. Because that one there has a cooldown before you can reset it. Okay, so off to operations. Operations. This has a lot of generalized stuff, and this tree is best known for its cool runs. But I'm going to start from the top and just kind of work my way down. Quick ignition. When you overheat, this lets you start up just that little bit sooner, and that can sometimes be the difference between life and death when you have shut down from overheat, but just by like 101%. If you've like really passed your overheat, well, you're going to be shut down for a little while. And once shut down, you have to wait for it to restart. And even if you hit override when you're shut down, it's not going to make you restart any sooner from what I've seen. Speed retention. For the most part, this skill here is pretty much a waste of your time. I would recommend planning your path to avoid speed retention. What this does is if you have lost a leg, it increases the speed that your mech goes after that leg has been lost. Because when you lose a leg, you go down to, I think, a cap of 40 kph. This here lets you go, with one skill node, it lets you go up to 50 kph as your new standard. But most times, the mechs that's going to really care for that are light mechs. They go over 100 kph, most times 140, 150. Going down to 50 kph means they're still an easy target and they're still going to die. I'm going to tell you right now, avoid it. Improved gyros. This is your starting path almost all the time. Go to improved gyros is my recommendation. This here, whenever you get hit, you notice that your screen will shake when certain weapons, particularly missiles and ballistics, hit you. Your screen will shake all over the place. This here reduces the screen amount that your screen will shake when you are struck by those weapons. So that's actually far more useful than speed retention almost 100% of the time. Because let's face it, you're gonna get hit even in a light mech. Heat containment. This one's okay to have. I would not concentrate on getting all of them, but they're okay to use as a gateway to get through other areas. What heat containment does is it increases the heat threshold before you overheat. What this means is you can actually generate more heat before you actually hit your 100% cap and shut down or start taking damage if you have overridden your heat controls. It's nice to have, but it's not the greatest, and I will explain why in a little bit. But first, hill climb. Hill climb is pretty good for the heavier mechs, especially like assault and heavy mechs, because they have a harder time running over hills. Light mechs don't really need hill climb, but with hill climb, a light mech can go over far steeper obstacles than they could beforehand. It's good to have, but it's not a must-have. Okay, now we would have the cool run. This is why I say that the heat containment is not nearly as important as another skill. This is the other skill that you are going for. Cool run makes it so your mech cools down faster. The faster you dissipate the heat, the sooner you can shoot again. This is very critical. So I would almost, if you have running a build that runs hot before you have any skill points, get cool runs on it. I always recommend at least getting, there's usually 2 that you can get pretty easily. I mean, this is a pretty good path right here. Bam, I just got 2 of them. That's if your mech runs moderately hot. If you are really strapped for points and you really need to get as many cool runs as you can, this is a good path to go with. Even though I'm missing this cool run, I got all the other ones for far less skills than what it would take to get here and then try to get down here. If you really need all of them, heat containment right here is your bridge to move over. I am saying that because operations is probably one of your most basic skill trees you are going to put skills into. There is a reason I did this list backwards. From there, this is my favorite tree. My current mech has no jump jets, so this tree is completely disabled. I cannot put any skill points into it. It won't let me click anything. A lot of people say that this is a waste. I say it depends upon what you're looking for and how often you are jumping. I will start. Heat shielding. If your mech is a hot mech, when you jump jet, your jump jets produce heat as well. So if you were using this as a defensive maneuvering, heat shielding will keep their jump jets from producing additional heat, keeping you running cooler so you don't overheat as often. I find that to be very important, but some people disagree with me. It's fine. It's, as I stated, it depends upon the individual pilot to make up their own mind of what skills are important to them. From there, vent calibration. This means that you will have more jump jet fuel, so you can actually have your jump jets engaged longer or more often. This can be good if you're doing high jumps. It can also be good because you won't use, on the visual bar, you won't use as much jump jet fuel if you're doing little pop-ups, otherwise referred to commonly as pop-tarting. Or if you're doing little hops, it means that it will basically recharge just that little bit faster. That's actually a good thing. Vectoring, I think, is one of the worst skills in the jump jet tree, and I normally try to avoid them when I can. But there are 2 right here that actually block your way to these nice lift speeds, but I will explain what vectoring does first. Vectoring means that when you jump jet, if you are standing stationary, when you jump jet, you actually move forwards a little bit before you've dropped back down to the ground. Vectoring, what this skill does, is it means that when you jump jet, you will actually jump forwards faster than if you didn't have this skill. So you'll jump forwards more. Oftentimes when you're using jump jets, in my experience, you're trying to stay on a platform or stay behind cover, and this skill can actually force you forwards and on top of that piece of cover or down a hillside. And then you're going, oh, I just dropped down into hi enemy team. You can all see me now. Defeats the purpose. Vectoring I could maybe see being useful if you're using jump jets to bop up and down to try to evade incoming fire because it'll give you that quick burst rather than slowing you down. But I have not tested that theory yet because I normally use jump jets mechs for jump sniping or pop tarting, jumping over cover, jumping over enemy mechs even to get behind them and turn them around. Um, From there, we have lift speed. Lift speed is, I think, one of the best skills in the jump jet tree. This means that when you hit your jump jets, you will go up into the air faster than if you didn't have this skill. For me, I normally want to pop up and I'll shoot and then drop back down. The faster I can do that, the more often I can typically shoot until I run out of jump jet fuel. This also means that if you're trying to jump up over a cliff face to escape an enemy, this skill, the lift speed, will let you actually jump higher between that and vent calibration so you can actually jump up into higher places. I believe that is all of the skills in the jump jet tree. Mobility, this one here really depends how much you value your mobility. Some mechs value more from this than others. Assault mechs typically will want to get the twist speeds and stuff, which I'll explain later. This tree also has a lot of stuff into it, but this is more of a secondary tree for a lot of mechs. Fast light mechs normally normally love this tree for a speed tweak. So if you're a light mech, this tree, the mobility tree, is oftentimes even more important than survival tree, especially for mechs like the Locust, the Flea, or the Piranha. Anyways, to continue. Kinetic burst. This means that you accelerate just a little bit faster. This means that if you are trying to go forwards, you will gain speed faster than if you didn't have the skill. Hard brake. Kinetic burst in reverse. This one here lets you stop sooner. Those two skills combined make a great team effort for light mechs, because light mechs can bobble back and forth faster, which means that they can either spread damage or have enemy shots miss them completely a lot easier. From there, we have torso yaw. This is, I believe, side to side angle. This will increase the angle that your mech can twist. Yep. Um, Anchor turn. This one here is good once I hover over it. Anchor turn is good for assault mechs to try catching light mechs that are behind them, and especially good for light mechs. But once again, it's optional. It's not necessarily a needed skill all the time. What anchor turn does is it makes it so that your mech actually turns their legs that much faster. So they can actually physically turn sooner. From there, we have torso speed. Torso speed means that you will twist your torso side to side faster. This can be good for heavier mechs, as they normally want to, especially as you improve in skill. Normally, more skilled players do what's called rotating armor. What they do is when they're taking damage, they will twist their torso as the damage is coming in, so the damage spreads across their mech. Rather than just losing their CT to all that firepower, they'll have it hit a little hit their arm, a little hit their side torso, a little hit their CT, and the damage that would have punched through their center torso armor completely now just barely damaged all the components of their mech. Very useful skill to learn how to do, and as far as skill tree related, this skill can be very good for mechs that have very slow torso speed. Or it's also good for mechs that have nothing but pure torso mounted weapons, because now that torso speed twisting lets them get those weapons onto target sooner. Okay, I believe that the next one that we have up for is Speed Tweak. Speed Tweak increases your mech's max speed. This is usually best for light mechs. I also especially like it on mechs like the Black Lantern with Mask. Um, it also works pretty well, I find, with my Hellfire to let my Hellfire move a max of 106 kph when I have all speed tweaks unlocked on it. And the Hellfire is a 60-ton heavy clan mech. So speed tweak can be good, but it's not a necessary for many mechs. For light mechs, speed is life. Speed is your armor. Light mechs, you almost always want to get speed tweak. This is almost always going to be better for you than anything in the survival tree, which I will be covering in just a moment. So there's the mobility tree. Survival tree. This tree here has a lot to do with increasing your mech's total health or ability to take damage. This tree is usually a universal, take at least half of this tree, if not the entire tree. I will state, mechs like the 20-ton mechs, like the Locust, the Flea, and the Piranha, this tree is, they're going to only get like a point or two total. I might be a little sarcastic on that. I don't know the exact point of health that they will get by maxing out this tree, but they are not there to take damage. So survival tree with light mechs, not as useful, but survival tree with an assault mech, very useful. But pretty much a medium mech and higher is going to want to invest in the survival tree. Light mech, it really is going to depend upon how you have it set up. An urban mech is going to want the survival tree over the mobility tree most of the time. Anyways, to go through the tree skills, we have reinforced casing. What this does is it will reduce the crit chance of enemies' firepower going into you. Anyone who's not familiar with crits, it is a chance that any weapons that can deal to your mech when your mech no longer has armor, and it's depending upon its internal structure to keep the mech going. Critical hits can take out components such as heat sinks, your weapons, your ammo, and it can get really nasty. It also causes additional damage to your internal structure, which will kill you sooner. Reinforced casing, depending upon your mech, is more or less an optional skill, but it is an unlocking skill in the survival tree. It's actually a pretty decent unlocking skill. AMS Overload. This is a useless skill if you do not take AMS. If you have AMS, this skill can be a good skill to have. Once you've got the 2 AMS overloads, your AMS is going to be shooting down enemy missiles that much easier. And that is any enemy missiles. MRMs, ATMs, LRMs, SRMs. If you're a light mech with AMS, it also shoots down streak SRMs. AMS is oftentimes undertaken and more powerful than people think, especially when you have these 2 skill nodes. If you are short on active skill points and you're cutting things close, this is a skill you can skip. Shock Absorbance. This one here is good if for mechs that, like if you tend to find that you're falling off cliffs a lot and damaging your legs, or especially if you have jump jets. This skill node here means that you will take less damage when you fall. If you fall from too high of a height, you will damage your legs. If you fall from too high of a height, you can actually blow your legs off. So this is a decent skill to still take. If you don't have AMS, take the Shock Absorbent. It's good. Skeletal Density. This increases the health of your internal structure. Pretty self-explanatory. More internal structure health means that you will live longer. However, higher internal structure health with the crit chance that some weapons can get, or just crit chances in general, means that your internal components are going to be more vulnerable. This just means that basically you might be more likely to survive losing all of your weapons and go, I'm still alive, and I have all my sections of my mech, but I have nothing I can do. I am not saying anything against skeletal density. It is still increased health. Reinforced casing we've already gone over. Armor hardening. This is the key skill most people pursue in the survival tree. This increases the amount of armor on your mech. More armor means more health. Armor also means less time that your enemy can get crits on your internal components. Armor cannot be critted. So therefore this, in this game, is a very good skill to have. Oftentimes you want to pursue this side of the tree over this side because there are more armor hardenings over here rather than here. There's only one armor hardening here compared to the two here. So we have that. Skeletal density, armor hardening. My general rule of thumb for tree here is to actually normally, if I'm skimping on points, I will do this just to get the armor hardening for only 16 skill points. And considering you can have 91 active skill nodes, that's actually not too bad of a drain on many mechs. You can always get more. There's another armor hardening here that's good, and there's another one right here. But you're only talking about 5% extra armor. You're not missing out on that much. Anyways, I'm going to cancel this. The best way to cancel the skill tree is to actually declick the top skill. Bam! All the skills are unassigned on the entire tree. And as you can see, I have this because my mech has no AMS, and the AMS nodes will not work on this mech. Finally, firepower. This one here covers your weapon bonuses. I normally fill this out last. Let me shrink this down again. I normally fill this one last with any leftover skill points. This tree is very useful, but it's also very easy to think skill points that could be more necessary elsewhere and putting it into this tree. Most of these are self-explanatory. Range increases the range of your weapons. Velocity increases the velocity of your weapons. This will not help lasers, but it does help missiles, ballistics, and PPCs. And Gauss rifles are ballistic, never mind. Anyways, next one that's on here for general skill is cooldown. This means that your weapons can shoot faster. It does not make it so your weapons or your heat is less. It makes it so you can shoot your weapons sooner. The more often you shoot your weapons actually means the more heat you can produce. So cooldown can actually get you in trouble heat-wise, but it does help your DPS. DPS is damage per second, just to clarify in case if anyone didn't know. From there, I'm going to avoid the weapon-specific ones right now. We have heat gen. This will mean that every single time you pull your trigger and shoot your weapons, those weapons will produce less heat. If you ever have a question between which is more beneficial, heat gen or cool run is always more beneficial. Heat gen is still good to have, but cool runs are the key. Do not make a decision between one or the other. If you have to, pick the cool runs. From there, I believe that that's actually it for generalized skills. All the rest are specific to individual weapon systems, like high explosive will increase the crit chance that missiles will do. So that means that when missiles hit a target, they actually have a higher chance to produce a crit on exposed internals. Missile spread. This also helps missiles. It means that they don't spread out as wide of a net. They actually focus more on one area. They cluster together closer. This means that you have to be more accurate, but when you do hit, more of your damage is likely to hit a single spot on the enemy mech rather than sandpapering the entire mech altogether. Missile rack. This increases the amount of ammo of any amount of missile ammunition per ton in your mech, such as with just the missile rack one skill node of Missile Rack unlocked will actually give you, say, LRM clan LRM capacity. It'll give you an extra 18 LRM rounds per ton of ammo. Most times you're going to put on enough ammo that Missile Rack is not that big of a deal. But if you're running nothing but a pure ammo build, Missile Rack can be very good for a pure, say, I know that there's the Hero Dervish that can run nothing but missile hardpoints. I have mine set with nothing but SRMs. Missile Rack with that mech would mean I have more ammunition so I can last longer, because I have no energy backups. So Missile Rack is decent. There are oftentimes many more skills that you could take over that, but it's not a bad skill to have. From there, laser duration. This one here is good if you are being a laser boat. What this does is it makes it so your lasers, the beam duration lasts for a shorter period of time, which means that they will apply more damage to a single location easier. Because lasers deal damage over each second that the beam is on. Consider it like a flashlight. If you wave your flashlight around real quick, you're not really getting any one spot that's going to have any brightness. If you put your flashlight into one spot, you're going to see that one beam of light on the wall, and it's right there. In this case here, imagine that being something like, say, a lightsaber trying to go through some heavy armor plating. If it sits in there for a while, it will melt it over time, compared to just striking it and bouncing off and doing minimal damage. So laser duration is very good. It couples very well with pulse lasers of particular note because they already have a short duration, but they are very useful for things like heavy lasers or ER lasers that have a long burn time. That means that they can actually shoot over a less period of time. Okay, let's go to the ballistic weapons. Actually, there's one more energy weapon mode that's special to it. Flamer ventilation. This means that your flamers, if you have ever used them, the longer you push the button, the higher that there is a bar that goes up. It's similar to the rack jamming bar. It slowly goes up until it hits the max cap. Once it hits that max cap, it slowly starts producing more and more heat on yourself. This means that when you stop shooting those flamers, they will actually go back and reset back to a normal cooldown, which means that they will be giving you less heat once again. From there, Gauss charge. This extends the amount of time that your Gauss rifle can remain charged before it loses its charge and must be recharged to shoot again. Gauss rifles are a confusing mechanic. If you have not used them yet, I would recommend you give them a spin. They charge up when you hold down the button and they shoot when you let go, unless you held it down too long and then the charge reduces itself. It drains out. From there, we have LB spread. Just like missile spread, LB spread reduces the spread of the LB pellets so that they are more likely to hit a single location. This is good for if you're planning on using LBs at long range of particular note. It is also pretty decent when you are trying to take down one exposed component on a mech that has no armor and it's down to internal structure, because LBs actually have an increased crit chance. So this skill can be useful. It is not a must-have, but it is still very useful to have. Enhanced Ultra AC and Rack skills. These, when one of those two AC types jam, they will remain jammed for a certain period of time. This will make it so that that jam time is reduced. This is still good for any Ultra AC or rack size. It is best for the heavier Ultra cannons, like the Ultra 20. If that thing gets jammed, it's jammed for a really long time. This one here, if you're running racks or Ultra ACs, this is almost a paramount. You need this skill. Get them. From there, we have magazine capacity. Just like with the missile one, this is the ballistic version of the missile rack skill, and it adds extra bullets to each ton of ammo you have for anything that's a ballistic. That includes machine guns, LBs, ultras, Gauss, normal ACs. All of that is part of machine guns. If it's got that purple color to the weapon and the ammo colors, this will give it additional rounds. This is great for mechs that have an ammo dependency, such as some King Crabs and Jaeger mechs, or even Direwolves that have nothing but ultra cannons on them. They need the extra ammo. I believe that pretty much sums up the entire skill tree. I still recommend that people use skills and see how they work. Remember, if you unlock skills and you don't like it, you can always turn them off. They are not permanently locked. So do keep that in mind when you're setting up your skill trees. And if you go, oops, I accidentally unlocked this skill way, way back in this mech's career, and I changed that build and it doesn't have missiles anymore, you can disable those nodes and then work your way to the new skills that you need. It will still cost you experience and C builds to unlock new nodes, but it does not cost you anything to deactivate or reactivate an already unlocked node. To show you that, I'm going to go to my Black Lantern for just a moment, go to skills, and say, oh gee, I decided I don't need this anymore. I can turn that off. It tells me here what I've got as negatives now, or not as good, because it was 7.5, now it's 4.5. I can click Apply Changes. Yep, that's how I want it. Oh, I changed my mind. I still need those skills. Absolutely no cost, no deductions to me, because I already had those skill nodes unlocked to begin with. That concludes this tutorial. I hope someone out there found my rambling informative and helpful. And I hope you all have a good fun day and fun matches. I will see you around in the next video.